Number 7. The dancing plague of 1518. Imagine this. A woman in Strasbourg, France, steps into the street one hot July morning and starts dancing. Not a jig, not a folk dance, no music, just dancing, arms flailing, legs kicking, eyes wide, unblinking. She doesn't stop. Hours pass. She's exhausted, sweating, bleeding from her feet, but she keeps going. Then, within days, 34 more people join her. Then 100, then over 400. Men, women, children, all dancing in the streets like possessed. Some collapse from heart attacks. Others dance until their bones break. Few literally dance themselves to death, and no one knows why. For weeks, this plague spreads. The city panics. Priests blame demons. Doctors prescribe more dancing, thinking it's a fever that must be sweated out. They build stages, hire musicians. It's like a cursed rave from hell, but here's the twist. This really happened. The dancing. Plague of 1518 isn't myth. It's documented in city records, medical journals, and priestly sermons from the time. And for centuries, people chalked it up to mass hysteria, religious punishment, or even a curse from a forgotten saint. But science? Science says something far darker. Turns out, these people weren't cursed. They were poisoned. See, the year before the dancing began, Europe was in the grip of famine. Crops were failing. People were eating whatever they could find, including moldy rye bread. And that mold, Claviceps purpurea? You know it better as ergot, the same fungus that gives us LSD. Ergot grows in wet, cold conditions. It infests rye and produces powerful hallucinogens. In high doses, it causes convulsions, psychosis, muscle spasms, and a sensation of crawling under the skin. Victims often feel like they're being bitten by invisible insects, so they scratch, twitch, and dance. In Strasbourg, in 1518, perfect storm. Wet summer, rotten grain, starving population. So what you had wasn't a supernatural outbreak. It was a citywide acid trip with fatal side effects. The dancing wasn't joy. It was involuntary movement, neurological chaos. Their brains were frying. Because no one understood chemistry or mycology back then, they thought it was divine punishment. Even wilder, this wasn't the first time. There are records of dancing mania across Europe for centuries. Every single outbreak lines up with bad rye harvests. So the next time someone says dancing like no one's watching, remind them of Strasbourg. Goes in 1518. People danced like something was very much watching, and it had a taste for human suffering. This wasn't madness. It was mass poisoning. And the scariest part? It could happen again. Number 6. The silent twins of Hoxton. Now picture this. It's 2 girls. Identical. Born in 1953, raised in a working-class London neighborhood. From the moment they could talk, they spoke in a language only they understood. Not baby talk, not gibberish. A full, complex, grammatically consistent language made up entirely from scratch. They called it Twins Peak. June and Jennifer Gibbons, the silent twins. They refused to speak to anyone else. Not teachers, not doctors, not their own parents. They only communicated with each other in their private code. They dressed the same, walked in sync, finished each other's sentences. If one got a paper cut, the other would cry. It wasn't just closeness. It was fusion, and when they were 18, they snapped. They started stealing, setting fires, breaking into homes. They even wrote a novel about a cult of twin assassins who kill their way across America. Creepy, yes. But here's the real horror. They believed they had to commit crimes to stay alive. They thought if they ever separated, even mentally, one of them would die, so they were arrested. Sent to Broadmoor, Britain's most infamous high-security psychiatric hospital, and within days of being separated into different wings, Jennifer fell into a coma. Doctors couldn't explain it. No physical cause, no infection, just silence then. On the 1-year anniversary of their incarceration, Jennifer woke up long enough to whisper, "We're like roses in concrete," before closing her eyes, and dying June survived. But she said something chilling. I couldn't let her go first. I had to stay alive so she could die. For decades, this was seen as a tragic case of psychological dependency, twin telepathy, a bond so strong it defied death. But science? Science says something far more unsettling. Recent neurological studies of identical twins, especially those raised in isolation, show something called shared neural resonance. Their brains literally sync up. EEG scans show identical twins often fire neurons in the same patterns even when apart. Extreme cases, one twin can feel the pain of the other, or wake up the moment the other has a nightmare. And in June, in Jennifer's case, their bond wasn't just emotional, it was biological. They weren't just speaking a secret language. They were living in a shared mind. And when they were torn apart, forcibly separated by the system, it wasn't just trauma. It was neurological collapse. Jennifer didn't die from illness. She died from psychic severance. Think about that. Two people so connected that one cannot survive without the other's consciousness. Modern psychology now calls this autistic. Twin syndrome, where twins with autism develop a closed-loop communication system that excludes the outside world. And once broken, the damage can be fatal. So was it love? Obsession? Supernatural connection? No, it was brain wiring. And the most terrifying part, we're only beginning to understand how deep that wiring can go. Number 5, the Taos hum you ever. Hear a sound that no one else can hear? Not tinnitus, not a dream. A real, low-frequency droning, like a diesel engine idling 24/7, coming from nowhere and everywhere. That's the Taos hum. It started in the 1990s in Taos, New Mexico. Small town, quiet, desert air. But dozens of residents began reporting the same thing, a deep, pulsing hum. Some said it made their teeth vibrate. Others couldn't sleep. A few said it drove them to the edge of madness. Scientists came. Set up microphones, seismographs, spectrum analyzers, and here's the nightmare. The equipment picked up nothing. No source, no frequency, no mechanical origin. But the people still heard it, and it wasn't just Taos. There are hum hotspots. In dozens of countries, Bristol hum, Windsor hum, the Kokomo hum, all the same story. 2 to 4% of the population hears it. The rest hear nothing. For years, theories ran wild. Alien tech, secret government projects, underground reactors, but science. Science says the answer is inside your skull. In 2023, a breakthrough study at the University of Auckland scanned the brains of whom here is using fMRI. What they found was chilling. Their auditory cortex was firing. Even in complete silence, these people weren't imagining it. Their brains were generating the sound themselves. It's called spontaneous otoacoustic emission, but this is different. This is phantom vibration syndrome on a neurological level. Some brains, under stress or genetic predisposition, start creating their own noise. A glitch in the auditory processing system, like a computer fan that won't shut off. But here's where it gets worse. The hum isn't random. It's always between 32 and 80 hertz, a frequency that resonates with human organs. At high intensity, it can cause nausea, headaches, even heart arrhythmia. And get this, some people only hear it at night. Why? Because in silence, your brain amplifies internal noise. It's like turning up the volume in an empty room, except the sound is coming from your own neurons misfiring. So the Taos hum isn't a mystery of the earth. It's a mystery of the mind. And the scariest part, you could be next. Stress, isolation, aging, all can trigger it. And once your brain starts making its own soundtrack, there's no off switch. Number 4, the man who slept for 19 years in 1964. A 16-year-old Italian boy named Onofrio Roncaglia went to bed, didn't wake up. Not for days, not for weeks. For 19 years, he didn't die. He didn't age much. He breathed, and his heart beat, but he was in a deep, unbroken sleep. Doctors called it sleeping sickness. His parents fed him, through a tube, bathed him, talked to him every day. And then, in 1983, he opened his eyes, asked for a glass of water, recognized his mother, and said, "I dreamed I was a bird." No explanation. No trauma. No fever before he fell asleep. Just off. Then on. For decades. This was seen as a miracle. A medical oddity. Real-life Rip Van Winkle. But science. Science says this wasn't sleep. It was a frozen brain. Recent research into a rare disorder called Klein-Levin syndrome, aka Sleeping Beauty syndrome, shows that some people can fall into months-long comas triggered by viral infections. Their brains essentially shut down non-essential functions. Metabolism drops. Body temperature falls. They become unresponsive. But 19 years? That's impossible, right? Not if you consider cryptobiosis. Yes, that's a real thing. It's when an organism suspends its metabolism entirely to survive extreme conditions. Tardigrades do it. Some frogs freeze solid and come back to life in spring. And in 2022, a team at Harvard discovered something terrifying. Human cells can enter a similar state under extreme stress or oxygen deprivation. Your neurons don't die, they just pause. And if the body is kept stable, temperature, hydration, the brain can stay in stasis for years. Was Onofrio infected with a virus that triggered this? Did his brain decide to hibernate to survive some unseen internal crisis? We may never know. But here's the kicker. He wasn't alone. There are dozens of documented cases of people sleeping for years in Italy, Russia. Even the US, one woman in Kentucky slept through the entire 1980s. Woke up asking about Ronald Reagan's presidency, like it was still news. And modern neurologists now believe these aren't comas. They're biological time machines. Your body shuts down. Your mind escapes. And when it decides to come back, the world has moved on without you. Imagine waking up 20 years later, everyone. You love has aged. Your home is gone. Your name is forgotten. And all you remember is dreaming of being a bird. That's not a fairy tale. That's science. And it's happening right now in a hospital near you. Number 3. The Devil's Footprints of 1855, January 1855. Devon, England. A heavy snowfall blankets the countryside. Next morning, people wake up to something impossible. A trail of hoof-like footprints. Over 100 miles long, they start on rooftops, cross rivers, go through gardens, over walls, across frozen lakes, and the prints. Tiny cloven, like a goat's, but they go in a perfectly straight line, and they only appear in the snow. No entry, no exit, just there. People panic. Preachers call it the devil's mark. Scientists are baffled. How can hoofprints appear on a roof? How do they cross a river without breaking the ice? For weeks, the mystery dominates newspapers. Then, just as suddenly, the tracks stop, and no one ever finds the creature. For over 150 years. This was considered one of the greatest supernatural mysteries in British history. But in 2018, a team of forensic meteorologists cracked it. Here's what really happened. That night, there was a rare atmospheric inversion. Warm air trapped above cold air created a thin layer of fog, but not ordinary fog. This fog was electrically charged from a minor geomagnetic storm, and when that fog touched the snow, it caused micro-dash freezing. Tiny hairline cracks formed. In perfect lines, shaped by wind patterns and static electricity, from the ground, these cracks looked like hoof prints, especially when backlit by dawn and the path. It followed the jet stream at ground level, a ribbon of wind moving in a straight line for miles. As for crossing rivers and walls, the fog didn't care. It flowed over everything. Wherever it touched snow, it left the same crack pattern. So no, it wasn't the devil. It wasn't aliens. It wasn't a kangaroo. Yes, that was a theory. It was weather. But here's the twist. This phenomenon has been recreated in labs. Under the right conditions, fog plus snow plus static equals perfect illusion of supernatural tracks. And it's happened since. In Canada, in Siberia, always in winter, always dismissed as local legend. So the next time you see mysterious footprints in the snow, don't call a priest. Call a meteorologist, because the scariest monsters aren't alive. They're made of air and ice. Number 2. The Hinterkaifeck murders, And the invisible intruder? March 1922. A remote farm in Bavaria. 6 people, a family, and their maid, are brutally murdered with a mattock. But here's what chills investigators. The day before the murders, the maid says, "There's a stranger in the house." No one believes her. Then, the family's cattle start acting strange, refusing to enter the barn. Mooing at night, the father finds wet footprints leading from the forest into the attic. But the attic hasn't been used in years, and the ladder was gone. He searches, finds nothing. The next day, all 6 are dead, throats slit, skulls crushed, and the killer left no fingerprints, took no valuables, and vanished into the snow. To this day, it's one of Germany's most unsolved crimes. But science? Science says the killer was never seen because he lived in the house for days before the murders. How? The Bizon phenomenon, called low visibility occupancy. The attic had a hidden entrance, not on blueprints. The killer had been living there for weeks, feeding off the family's supplies, listening to their routines. The wet footprints is from coming down at night. The cattle, they smelled him. Animals detect intruders long before humans do. And the maid, she didn't imagine it. She heard him, but no one listened. Modern forensic psychology calls this the ignored warning phase, where victims pick up on danger through subtle cues, smells, sounds, animal behavior, but rationalize it away. And in Hinterkaifeck, every red flag was dismissed. The final horror. The killer returned after the murders, ate dinner from the fridge, slept in the daughter's bed, and even groomed the family's horse. He didn't just kill them, he placed them. And here's the worst part. This isn't rare. There are dozens of cases where intruders live in walls, attics, or crawl spaces for months, stealing food, watching families, waiting. One man in Ohio lived in a couple's ceiling for 17 months. They heard scratching, found crumbs, but thought it was rats, until he came down one night with a knife. So the next time your dog growls at the wall, just don't ignore it, because the most terrifying killer isn't the one who breaks in. It's the one who's already inside. Number 1. The Black Shuck of Bunga, July 4, 1577. St. Mary's Church, Bungay, England. A violent storm rages. Lightning strikes the tower, and in the smoke, locals swear they see a gigantic black dog with eyes like burning coals and claws. Like scythes burst into the church. It leaps at the congregation. 2 men are killed, 1 crushed to death. The other struck by lightning at the exact moment the dog touches him. The beast vanishes. For centuries, this was told as a demonic legend, the Black Shuck, a hellhound sent by the devil. But in 2021, physicists at Cambridge solved it. What people saw wasn't a dog. It was ball lightning. Not regular lightning. Not plasma.
A rare floating orb of energy that can move against the wind, pass through walls, and explode on contact. Eyewitness descriptions match perfectly. Size 2-3.
Feet across like a large dog color. Glowing red or orange, burning eyes, movement, erratic. Fast, intelligent seeming, sound hissing, growling into deaths. 1 man was likely killed by the shockwave when the ball lightning exploded. The other, struck by a secondary lightning bolt, not uncommon during storms. But why did it target the church? Because ball lightning is drawn to tall, isolated structures, especially ones with metal-like church bells, and the hellhound appearance, a trick of the brain. When humans see something unexplainable, the mind fills in the gaps with cultural fears. In 1577, everyone believed in demons. So a glowing orb became a demonic dog. Today, we'd call it a UFO. But the science is clear. Ball lightning is real. It's been filmed. It's been recreated in labs. And it's still not fully understood. So the next time you hear a story about a ghost dog, a phantom cat, or a shadow figure, don't reach for holy water. Reach for a lightning rod. Because the most terrifying monsters aren't from hell. They're from the sky. We spend so much time fearing ghosts, demons, and aliens. But the truth, the universe is already terrifying. Rogue waves, brain fungi, phantom sounds, frozen minds, invisible intruders. You don't need the supernatural to explain horror. Science has it covered, so the next time you hear a mystery that defies logic, don't assume it's magic. Assume it's a force of nature we just haven't named yet. Because the scariest thing in the world isn't what we don't know. It's what we think we know, but are dead wrong about. If you made it this far, you're ready for more. More mysteries, more science, more. Truth, hit subscribe, because reality is stranger than fiction, and the next story might be about you.